What's up, YouTube? Sir Hunt's Reviews. I'm Mark, and this is going to be my breakdown of Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. Alright, so getting right into things, we start off with Sansa Stark, and she is sitting there sewing a cloak that she is making for Jon Snow, which she plans to give to him, and she made it from the best of her memory of what her father, Ned Stark's cloak, looked like. But anyway, Sansa then gets a letter from Peter fucking Baelish telling her to go to Molestown. She, of course, is accompanied by Brienne. I just want to start off by saying this to summarize their conversation. Basically, she's threatening him the whole time, and she's like, I don't fucking believe you. I think you knew a little bit more than you're leading on to. You told me that you know everybody's secrets. She does nearly... I thought, honestly, she was about to do it, because she said... Peter Baelish goes, I'll do anything you want me to that's in my power. And she goes, what if I want you to die? So I thought shit was about to go down. But it ultimately doesn't. She's just not that savage yet. She lets him go, but he leaves with parting words telling her that her uncle, Brendan Blackfish Tully, has been gathering the new Tully armor and Tully army and retook Riverrun. I do want to say that one thing she mentions that I think is a little bit of foreshadowing. I think she says some shit like, I can still feel what Ramsay did inside of me right now, standing here. So I think that's hinting that she might actually be pregnant. And the only person that now knows is Brienne and Peter, if they could pick up on shit like I do. Now, I could just be reading in it too much. But she does, I want to make the note to say that she ends up lying when she tells Jon how she found out about the information on Riverrun. Moving right along to Arya. Arya begins fighting with the waif. She's getting better. Well, she can endure longer. The waif goes bare knuckle for a second. She tells Arya she'll never be one of them. Jaqen interrupts with a new mission. He adds in that waif does has a point, saying that she'll never be a true faceless man, referring to Arya. That leads Jaqen into telling Arya a short little brief history of the history of the Faceless Men, and how most of them started off as slaves, which relates back to Arya as the daughter of a highborn lord. So that's where he was saying, like, I honestly took it as they're saying, like, yeah, you're never going to truly be a Faceless Man. You're going to learn everything you need to know, and then you're going to fucking leave, become Arya Stark again, and then just go kill everybody. Now, the mission that she's given is actually... I like to call it the Mummer's Farce, just because the plot leak and myself predicted it. Basically, she goes there, and they're not portraying the War of the Five Kings at first, per se. Now, this could actually be a play series where we're just seeing part one, and part one is the events of Game of Thrones. So we're finding out what's going on with Robert Baratheon, their version of it. And Arya is laughing at first, but she ends up not thinking it's so funny when her father, Ned Stark, is portrayed as being a bumbling fucking moron. Now, Robert Baratheon was a drunken idiot, but Ned Stark was the furthest fucking thing from a retard, so we know that hurts Arya's feelings. Anyway, Arya ends up making her way backstage. She finds out who her target is, Lady Crane, and she also sees that the way she'll poison her is by pouring the poison in her rum. She returns to the House of Black and White. She tells Jaqen, hey man, I figured out how I'm going to poison her. All I need to do is get a face off the wall. I'm going to pour the poison in her rum. Jaqen's like, nah, I don't think so. You're not ready. And Arya then questions. Of course, he's like, no girl doesn't ask questions or whatever. And she ends up finding out basically that the reason why the woman who she thinks is decent, Lady Crane, why she's getting killed is because the younger actress has hired the Faceless Men to kill her. So even more foreshadowing as to why Arya will leave. She's given targets of people who she doesn't think deserve to die. But she ultimately claims that she's ready and only serves the many-faced god of death, so that kind of leaves us with a cliffhanger of whether she actually leaves to go kill him, or we probably won't see her next episode. Now, we're moving on into Bran, and I do want to say that before I get into it, I don't understand how the show is not going to spoil for the books, because this is like groundbreaking A Song of Ice and Fire confirmation here. But hopefully George does it a different way in the book, so we're not spoiled when Winds of Winter comes out. But anyway, Bran is, of course, warging, and he's in a vision that I thought Bloodraven has seen before, but the look on Bloodraven's face is a little bit different. Basically, he's showing the creation of the White Walkers, meaning that we see Leaf, along with some of her other cohorts. I think some of them are currently still present with her, but basically, they are standing around in a circle, and Leaf is holding an obsidian dagger, and then she walks up to This guy, he's the actor who plays the Night's King, obviously without any of his makeup on, and then she pierces his heart with the obsidian / dragon glass dagger, and that ultimately turns him into a white. Now, one thing that is ringing in my head right now, questions, 100 of them, but the main one that pops up is how the fuck does dragon glass kill him if the original one was made by a fucking dragon glass dagger to the heart? I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out hopefully soon, but this is just awesome. Amazing symbolism. I love the detail. Like, at first when I saw the Children of the Forest, I was like, hey, they look a little bit alien in that sense, but I see when you look at the other ones in the background, you can see how they look very similar to the old Leaf, but they've just like progressed. I don't know, and they recast people all the time. But this also confirms that for the show, the first Night's King was not the 13th Lord Commander, but it is in fact. Looks like an Andal. I'm gonna go ahead and say that was an Andal. Leaf is of course there when Bran comes out of the warg, and she attempts to explain herself, and Bran's like, "What? You created them. What the fuck, man?" And she's like, "Look, we had no other choice. They were chopping down our forests. We were basically nearing extinction. So suck on that, cripple boy." All joking aside, Bran does in fact ask her, Why did you do it? I now see that you're the ones who created the White Walkers. She explains that men, basically he's the reason why. They had no other choice. They had to make some sort of weapon or some sort of basically army of these things that they needed to help take out the men. And of course it backfired and they all became the White Walkers now, but Bran is given confirmation, and we are all given confirmation, that the Children of the Forest in TV show land, at least, not necessarily in the Song of Ice and Fire novels, but in Game of Thrones, the TV show, the Children of the Forest are responsible, single-handedly, for the fucking White Walkers. Ain't that about a bitch? Moving on to the Iron Islands, we have Theon, Yara, and Euron Greyjoy. Starts off with Yara giving a speech on how she claims she's the rightful heir to the Salt Throne, and then some douche walks up and say, "You will not be queen when Balon's own heir is right fucking there." Theon stands up, gives a speech. Well, he wasn't never sitting down, but he basically takes a stand and gives a speech about how Yara is in fact the best candidate for the Seastone chair. Reason being is because everybody has fought under her, they've sailed under her, she is a reaver, she is a warrior, she is iron-born. Enter Euron fucking Greyjoy. He starts off right away by insulting Theon and mocking him on all his failures, and ends it with a fat big, "You don't have a cock, and that's most likely why you think Yara, who also doesn't have a cock, is fit to lead the Ironborn." Yara then says, "Hey, when did you get here?" He said, "I returned a few days ago to take care of some business that was long overdue." Yara then says, "Yeah, 'cause you murdered Balon." And then he goes, "Yup." Euron says this, "Yup, I did, and I did it with good reason. He was fucking up." He is then elected king of the Seastone chair. He drowns to death first, and then somehow performs some miracle fucking CPR on himself. I don't know what kind of magic he possesses. Well, I know Euron does have magic, but I'm just saying, he basically somehow regurgitates all the water he intook. All the while, Yara and Theon are in fact stealing a fleet of his best ships with some of their loyal Ironborn soldiers who are loyal to them. Presumably, I'm going to make a prediction and say they're headed to Meereen to rendezvous with Daenerys. Euron does in fact mention that that's one of his plans, which is straight out of the novels. He plans to wed Daenerys because she doesn't have a husband, and she's also got 3 massive dragons, and he knows that she's in need of ships, and says that his fleet will be the thing to seduce her, because Yara says, "Hey, how the fuck are you gonna marry? You think she'll just marry you?" And he's like, "No, but she'll marry me because of my ships." So that makes me think that Yara is the one who, Yara and Theon, their next goal is obviously to head to Meereen. And another reason why I think this is because Yara is actually seen making out with a Meereenese slave, a slave from Volantis, which could be the show's version of the Dusky Woman. I think that Yara will be getting a lot of Victarion's plotline. That being said, I do think that Euron has some kind of ties to the Harpy, because he knew that Dany would need ships. Now, he might know that he could have heard through the grapevine, but I'm just saying it's a mighty fucking coincidence that a few episodes ago, Tyrion and Varys are walking through the streets of Meereen, and they notice that Dany's ships are all on fucking fire. So he either has ties to the Harpy, or he is in fact the leader of the Harpy himself. He proves he's not a slow leak, and quickly realizes that Theon and Yara are no longer with him, and marches his troops up to a hill and finds out that they took his best ships, like I just said, and he tells everybody that they're not going to go chase them down. They're just going to build new ones and then go chase them down. So that should take a while. I think Yara and Ironborn are going to be busy building new ships until minimum the end of the season. Maybe even we won't, I don't know, we might not get much more story from them until next season. But we will for sure be seeing more of Yara and Theon. Another bold prediction from Sir Hunt's reviews. We don't get too much of Daenerys this episode, but basically to summarize what happens with her, she's giving a speech to Jorah and Daario, mainly Jorah, on top of a mountain overlooking the Khalasar, where she's basically telling him, I can't get rid of you, I can't send you away, I can't take you back, so what am I supposed to do with you? And then she moves in as if she's going to embrace him, and then he quickly moves out of the way, revealing that he has grayscale, and that he loves her, and he always will, but he has no choice but to leave. So then he turns around to leave, and she yells, hey, wait, your queen commands you to find a cure. Now, with that being said, I hope that he does in fact find a cure. We know that Melisandre was able to heal Shireen Baratheon, so with there being Kinvara, the new Red Priestess, in Meereen, maybe he ends up making his way back there, or Dany finds out that she can cure it, or some shit like that, with talking about it, and then she sends for him or something. But there is hope for Jorah and Daenerys yet, because Daenerys definitely kind of let it all hang out there. Daario was getting a little bit jealous, but they basically just consummated their love for each other. They didn't actually have sex, but they did what I call eye fucking. Daenerys has ended up leaving the Vaz Dothrak with her newly found Dothraki army. Daario right behind her. Jorah is across from her somewhere, heading in a different direction. I think he's gonna pretty much follow her back to Meereen. Just keep his distance. I will say this. Game of Thrones loves to give Targaryens white horses. Jon is going to ride a white horse in the Battle of the Six Armies, or the Bastard Bowl, if you will. And Daenerys is riding it back to Meereen. Targaryens and white horses. There's a link there. As soon as Dany is shown leaving with her newly found Khalasar, we get Tyrion and Varys, Missandei, and Grey Worm. They're all having a conversation about what to do next and how to make Daenerys' people believe and love her again. So they come up with a brilliant idea to involve a Red Priestess called Kinvara. She comes up. Tyrion is pretty respectful of her. He's asking her what she would do and how she would go about fixing Dany's reputation. And she begins to speak. She talks about how Kinvara speaks on how she will burn Dany's enemies alive, and she does make a point to say how she remembers that Tyrion has heard all this before, because apparently she's been in cahoots with the Asian Red Priestess from last season when Tyrion was in Volantis on a bridge, which pretty much throws Tyrion for a huge mindfuck. She also goes on to say how she's going to burn Dany's enemies alive, and how she plans on doing it. Well, Varys then interjects himself and says, look, you're a fanatic, and fanatics never think they're wrong, and how he thinks that she's basically crazy, and that Red Priestess, people who follow the Lord of R'hllor, or R'hllor, are crazy. Reason being is because he knows that Stannis was a follower of the Red God, and that as soon as not only did Tyrion stop him when he was trying to invade King's Landing, but he also just died, and his Red Priestess, Melisandre, jumped ship onto the next person she thought was Azor Ahai, or who was the prince that was promised. Well, guess what? She's got a trick up her sleeve. She also knows that Varys, something that will make him a believer, basically that she knows what happened to him as a child, and that she even goes as far as to say is, I can tell you the name of the demon who spoke to you when your dick was thrown into the fire. And he kind of shuts the fuck up and lets her finish doing her thing, and she ends up saying, well, I'm going to get my best Red Priest and Red Priestesses and send them throughout the city to help repair Daenerys' reputation. Flashing back to Bran Stark in Bloodraven's cave, he decides to wake up in the middle of the night, and everybody else is still sleeping. I didn't actually know if Bloodraven was asleep or working, but most likely he was asleep. Bran throws a stick at him, and he doesn't wake up, so then Bran decides to come up with this genius idea to touch one of the roots that's connected to the Weirwood throne that Bloodraven is sitting on, and in doing so, he's sucked into a warg. He is taken to the place where the Night King was turned into the Night King by the Children of the Forest. It's now covered in snow, and it looks like it's their base of operations in the lands of always winter. So, with that being said, Bran makes his way through the White's army, and in doing so, he gets to the end of it where he notices the Night's King. He sees that the Night's King looks at him while he's on his horse, and he's surrounded by his generals, and then he feels like somebody's watching him from behind, so he turns around and looks at the Whites, and then he quickly turns back around to realize that the Night's King is right in front of him. He tries to pull back and run away, but he's unsuccessful. The Night's King grabs his arm and successfully marks him, if you will. He yells himself out of the warg and wakes everybody up else in the cave, and Bloodraven says, "Did he touch you?" And Bran avoids the question, looks at his arm and says, "Yes." And then Bloodraven's like, "Well, you gotta leave now." And Bran's like, "Well, I thought I was safe here." And Bloodraven explains to him that he has been marked by the Night's King and he's no longer safe and that he needs to leave. And he's like, "Oh shit." And Bran asks him, or Bloodraven tells him, it's time for you to become me. And Bran says, "Do you think I'm ready?" And he says no, which in my opinion is fucking hilarious. Bran is immediately sucked into a warg after that. Then we have Jon discussing with his war council his plan for the Battle of the Six Armies. We have Jon basically ending his little speech with, "Yeah, we need more troops." Davos and Sansa kind of go at it. Sansa thinks that it'd be a good idea to go try to rally the Karstarks, but Davos reminds her that the Karstarks are no longer loyal to the Starks ever since Robb Stark, Sansa's brother, took off Lord Karstark's head back in season 3. So they have an exchange of words, and Sansa says, "Well, there's always my uncle Blackfish in River Run." And of course, she's asked how she found out about this information, and she lies and said that she intercepted a raven when she was back at Winterfell before she escaped from Ramsay, which we all know is a lie. And then we have her and Brienne walking off to her chambers, where Brienne expresses how she thinks that it's dangerous to leave Sansa alone at Castle Black, and she says she trusts Jon and Jon will protect her, and she says it's not just Jon, but there's other men. And of course we get her talking about fucking Tormund, which I forgot to mention. There is amazing Brienne and Tormund. Just get ready for the memes. There's going to be fucking memes everywhere. I know there was last week, but there's even more this time, because I feel like there was some funnier shit that happens with them. But basically, she convinces Brienne to leave to River Run, and that she'll be safe there with her brother Jon. We are then treated to another lovely Stark moment, where it's pretty heartwarming. Sansa and Jon meet up in the courtyard. Jon is looking more and more like a Stark, I might add, with his armor and whatnot. But Sansa's wearing this beautiful gown where she has a Stark emblem embroidered on it, and she tells Jon how she made it herself. And Jon says, "Well, my favorite part is that the wolf bit," this is his exact words. And then she says, "I've got a surprise for you. I've made this coat that I made for you that is exactly from my memory, or what I can remember of how Father's coat looked." Pretty touching scene. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was probably my favorite moment of the episode. Jon, Melisandre, Sansa, Davos, and Podrick are all leaving Winterfell. That's the last shot we get. We also get a pretty funny moment where someone walks up to Dolorous Edd and they say, "Should I close the gate, Lord Commander?" And Dolorous Edd says, "I am no Lord Commander." Wait, yeah, close the gate. Flashback to Bran and Bloodraven at the cave. They are both warging, and Mira and Hodor share a sweet conversation where Mira is asking Hodor if he's ready to go home. Hodor responds with his classic, because he's an expert conversationalist, Hodor, and then she asks him how he likes his eggs, and "Do you even like eggs?" She quickly realizes something is up when she can see her own breath, Hodor's breath, and then Bran's breath. And she realizes what the fuck is up. She runs to the entrance of the cave. She sees Leaf and the rest of the children of the forest are gathered at the front. And then the fucking Night King and the army of Whites are standing out there. So things quickly escalate. The Night King approaches, puts his hand on the ground, and what I think he's trying to destroy the barrier of weirwood roots, but he's actually putting a hole in the roof so that the Whites can climb in through the top. Mira is then told by Leaf to run back and go get Bran, and it's time to wake him up and they need to leave. Bran, of course, is in a warg with Bloodraven, and it's actually a flashback to when a young Ned Stark is hugging Rickon Stark. We get to see Rickard Stark, Ned's father, and he's about to send him to go live with Jon Arryn in the Vale. So, of course, Bran is enjoying this moment, and he hears Mira yelling through his warg dream that he needs to wake up and that he needs to warg Hodor. So, Bloodraven, of course, tells him to listen to his friend. Bran wargs Hodor. Hodor successfully puts Bran in the little sled they have, and then he rushes away. We also have the battle escalating even further out front. The Children of the Forest decide to light the weirwood roots on fire, which does protect the whites from coming in, because they're obviously vulnerable to fire, but the Night King and his generals walk right through it like it's nothing. They walk up to Bloodraven and ultimately end up killing him while he's in the warg. So Bran is told by Bloodraven, his last words are, it's time, you need to get your shit together and focus. So Bran stays in the warg. I'm not really sure why, but he basically watches what plays out of why Hodor is called Hodor. And it's actually because he's holding the door, keeping all the whites inside from attacking him. I'm fumbling for words because it's pretty fucked up. We had so many deaths. Like I didn't even talk. I guess I should go ahead and mention that. Leaf sacrifices herself by basically doing a kamikaze where she blows herself up. She lets a whole bunch of whites attack her, and then she blows them up. And then not even seconds or minutes before that, fucking Summer is taken out by like 5 to 10 whites. I feel like I could just do this review and it wouldn't actually happen, but no, it did. We lost a lot of people. We lost Bloodraven. We lost every single child of the forest. Bloodraven may come back in another form, but we lost Summer. We also lost Hodor. So with that being said, the only remaining direwolves that are alive are Nymeria and Ghost. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know it was a little bit long. Bran and Mira do end up making it out alive for right now, which leads me into my predictions, but I'm only going to share one with you. And I think that next episode, I haven't watched the trailer or anything because I've been working on this review literally for 4 hours, guys. I came back from the beach, I got home, I started cooking dinner. I wasn't able to sleep right at the beach, so I ended up taking a nap, and then, everybody was telling me that the episode was leaked. Obviously, I didn't want to do that because I pay for HBO, so why the fuck would I, watch the leaked episode? And not only that, I saw clips from it, and they're really shitty, foggy, like, unclear pictures. Hopefully these pictures in this review were awesome. But with that being said, I think that Bran and Mira's last defense is going to be Cold Hands, and that's his Uncle Benjen, and that's the guy who shows up with the flaming mace ball and flips over maybe one of the whites that were able to catch them or trail them down. That being said, I've said that being said like 50 million times this review. This has been 20 minutes plus. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you for hanging in there. This is Sir Hunt's Reviews. I'm Mark. If you haven't already done so, please slap a like on this video. Share it with your friends. Let me know what your thoughts on the episode are down in the comment section. And as always, the Jon Snow giveaway. I wish I could give away Kit Harington. That'd be fucking nuts. I mean, I'd have like 1 million subs if I could just give away people. But anyway, the Jon Snow doll giveaway is still going on. All you have to do is like, subscribe, and comment to enter. The giveaway will end on June 30th. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. Peace.